Hey, vets and families, welcome to the Therapist Explains VA Mental Health Disability Ratings series. This is your guide to understanding how the VA decides claims for PTSD, anxiety, depression, and other mental health conditions. Listen, if you're a veteran and you're battling PTSD or depression, you know that the fight doesn't end when you hang up the uniform. So I'm approaching this series both as a veteran who's lived it, all of these, some of these concerns, and as a trauma-focused therapist who has counseled others through it, and I'm still counseling others through these mental health concerns. That means you'll get a unique perspective, a lived experience, and I'll back it with research and clinical insight so that you can navigate your claim with clarity and confidence. Listen, VA mental health ratings are based on 38 CFR 4.130, the general rating formula for mental disorders. It's how your symptoms are translated into percentages ranging from 0 to 100%. And so we'll break down each diagnosis using the DSM-5 TR. This is the same manual that therapists and the VA use to define mental health conditions. I got one right here. You'll see exactly how your symptoms align with VA criteria and how to strengthen your evidence. Every episode that I do is going to include a DSM-5 TR overview of the condition, a research highlight, a proven VA claim strategy, and then some practical steps to help you build a strong evidence-based claim. You can also download my free guide. It's the VA Mental Health Claim Self-Assessment and Decision Tree. This is linked in the description and it's pinned in a comment. This is going to help you organize your symptoms, match them to the VA rating scale, and then prepare for your C&P exam with confidence. If you or another veteran needs immediate help, please call the Veterans Crisis Line at 988 and then simply press 1. You are never alone, and you've got help in this fight for your mental health and for your well-being. I want to be along on the ride and along on the journey with you. So before we start, let me give you a quick disclaimer. This content is for educational purposes only. I don't give legal, clinical, or medical advice. Royal Rock Counseling and Consulting LLC is not affiliated with the VA, and we don't prosecute claims. We do help you understand the process and connect you to qualified professionals if necessary. If you find this content helpful, please like it, subscribe it, hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Your support helps this channel reach more veterans and families who need clear, trustworthy guidance and advice on mental health and VA claims and things that can help their families live well and live well. So thank you to everybody who's already subscribed and commented and shared. You're part of the community helping veterans take back their voice, their health, and their future. So without further ado, let's begin your journey toward a fully developed VA claim that's informed, confident, and empowered. These videos aren't going to be that long, but they will all help you live royally and live well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the series. All right, vets and families, welcome back. And today we're going to discuss the Diagnostic Code overview of Diagnostic Code 9304, which is major or mild neurocognitive disorder due to traumatic brain injury, TBI. Now, important to understand that this Diagnostic Code 9304, is not to be confused with Series 8000 Diagnostic Codes under 4.124 Alpha, which is Schedule of Ratings for Neurological Conditions and Convulsive Disorders for TBI. Although we will spend a little bit more time on this neurocognitive disorder from a mental health perspective, there is going to be another really deep dive on TBI and TBI alone that we'll do on this channel, because TBI deserves its own deep dive with regard to everything that can be associated with TBI under neurological conditions and convulsive disorders. There are a whole host of diagnostic codes that could also result in chronic claim conditions that need to be discussed under TBI. And so that's what we'll do whenever we get to that point, and we will go much deeper and do a much deeper dive into TBI, because it's just that deep. There are just that many different conditions that can be associated with TBI. So that's not what we're doing here. We're just going to do one specific code that's under the category 4.130 for mental health disorders for VA claims. And so it's rated at 0 to 100%, as you know, and it's based on occupational and social impairment. Although some of those aspects in 4.124 alpha are also based on occupational and social impairment, But we'll talk more about that once we get to that particular section of the 38 CFR. The evaluations are for cognitive, emotional, and behavioral changes following brain trauma. And they may overlap with PTSD, depression, or anxiety disorders, requiring careful diagnostic clarification. And what that means is diagnostic tests are always imaging and scanning that are done on the brain. And so they have to compare the activity that's happening in there with what may be happening with regard to a stressor or trauma related PTSD or a major anxiety disorder. There are actual findings in the brain that must comport with a TBI neurological condition diagnosis before they can rule out any of the others. So that is the diagnostic code overview for TBI, neurological, and neurocognitive major or mild conditions. So in this particular section of the video, we're going to talk about the DSM-5 TR code and criteria for neurocognitive disorder due to TBI. And the DSM-5 TR code for this one is 331.82. Again, the name of it is major or mild neurocognitive disorder due to traumatic brain injury. The evidence of this is going to be cognitive decline in one or more areas of attention, memory, executive function, or processing speed. Symptoms develop after a head injury causing loss or alteration of consciousness, post-traumatic amnesia, or disorientation. There are some behavioral or emotional changes that are associated with this particular condition, which are irritability, aggression, depression, or apathy. And that's why it's really important to make sure that you have a trained behavioral medical professional that is able to be able to distinguish between some of these symptoms. And then they're also going to use the data from the event or the traumatic experience that you had. They're going to use the imaging data to decipher whether this could be something related to TBI. Generally speaking, TBI claims take the longest because the tests have to come back to, again, rule out certain things, because it could very well be that some of the other things that you're experiencing have nothing to do with your TBI injury, whether that be from be a concussion or some other way in which you had a traumatic brain injury. And so it's important to make sure that they match up the tests. So be patient with any TBI claims that you submit, because it may take a while just to make sure that the tests are inconclusive or conclusive, depending on the situation. Deficits interfere with independence in daily activities or occupational function. We've talked a lot about that, particularly with TBI. Any deficits to the brain, any deficient functioning to the brain is going to result in some daily activity or occupational functioning differences. Sometimes TBI injuries go so deep, and sometimes TBI injuries are so they are so detrimental and debilitating that other people in the family sometimes have to write statements for the veteran, because they're just not don't have the neural capacity to be able to write their own statement. So some TBI injuries can get just that deep to be able to do that. And then we're going to talk about the severity levels of that once we go over TBI itself and do a deep dive on that particular series. Now let's look at some of the core features of neurocognitive disorder. For TBI in veterans, you'll notice there's difficulty with attention, concentration, and short-term memory. There's an impaired executive functioning with regard to planning, organizing, or decision making. That's why it's always good to check on your buddies, check on your fellow soldiers, airmen, sailors, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and women, just to make sure that they're okay, particularly after a specific event. There's slow information processing and mental fatigue, emotional instability, irritability, and impulse control issues. And this is the reason why often with TBI, other people recognize the differences in processing and the differences in change of behavior before the actual veteran recognizes it. That's why it's really kind of tough to be able to submit a claim like this, because somebody else has to see the TBI effects in you. But then also social withdrawal, anxiety, depression. There's this certain level of emotional instability, impulse control, just someone who is obviously dealing with something much deeper than what they're expressing in the moment. One of the things we say often in therapy is it's never the stimuli or it's never the behavior itself that's the issue. It's always what's underneath and underlying that behavior. So someone could be exhibiting some of these symptoms, and underlying could be the result of some sort of neurocognitive disorder as a result of TBI. Social withdrawal, anxiety, depression, and this impacts their reliability, productivity, and interpersonal functioning. And you'll easily be able to see this if you see a sharp change in the degree to which they are reliable, dependable, productive, and function in a really good capacity. On that note, let's look at some research insight for TBI and long-term cognitive impairment in military veterans. This is work from Hoge et al. In 2008. They found that 15 to 23% of returning Iraq and Afghanistan veterans experienced at least mild TBI symptoms. These persistent symptoms included memory loss, attention deficits, irritability, and depression. So there is a precedent for TBI with regard to the military that's been seen over time. This is even dating as far back as the Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan vets. And so there is precedent for when you file this claim. And again, sometimes it's hard to note, but a trained eye will be able to see it, and even gathering journals and more information from the people that know you the best. Co-occurring PTSD and depression make the diagnosis of this, and we talked about this earlier, complex and can mask neurocognitive defects. So make sure you're paying attention to what's going on, because things could be happening. All sorts of issues could be arising with the veteran, and you don't even know that it's TBI unless somebody is actually saying, "Hey, something's off here. I'm seeing something, so I'm going to say something. Something's off here with my friend or my family member, and I'm going to call it out and make sure I get them the help that they need." So just like with any other condition that we've done on this channel, just like with everything else that we've said, there are claim challenges that are associated with neurocognitive disorder as a result of TBI. Let's look at a few of them. Lack of in-service documentation of concussion or head trauma. And this is going to be consistent with a lot of the other claim challenges for the other conditions as well. Just the nature of the military and the nature of medical assistance in the military and the nature of the medical capability in the military. You're not going to be able to get adequate documentation of everything that occurred and of everything that happened. Things have gotten a lot better, but on this front, there are still a lot of challenges. Inconsistent follow-up care post-deployment. Even though there's like post-deployment questionnaires for TBI, there's post-deployment. Again, when somebody comes back from being on deployment, the last thing they want to do is sit in the doctor's office or sit in the mental health behavioral office to just fill out some kind of questionnaire, some sort of survey about what happened while they were there. That's a form of re-triggering. I'm an advocate of everybody that comes back from combat or deployment. Everybody should be scheduled for a post evaluation with a mental health professional where the time can be taken with that specific individual. Giving people paperwork or, hey, check in the medical and fill out this survey and nobody's sitting with you and asking you questions, that's a recipe for a disaster, and it's a recipe for missing these symptoms and diagnoses. You can't catch something if you don't actually have a conversation with somebody about what it is that they went through, because everybody's experience is going to be different. And paying attention to our veterans, in that case, our military personnel, is what we owe them for standing on the front lines and fighting for our country. Okay, so box rant is over. But that's a way that they could fix making sure that they capture some of these things before they get out of hand, and also before they go unnoticed when someone's trying to fill out a VA claim. Inconsistent follow-up care post-deployment, overlapping symptomology with PTSD and other mood disorders. Again, there's this common trope that most everybody is either dealing with anxiety, depression, or PTSD. And so it's all lumped under the same thing. Nobody looks deeper and says, wait a minute, there could be a head injury that happened, or loud explosives, or something like that mess with the chemicals in the brain, and therefore that's what we're looking for. That's Compensation is one thing. Care for the condition is a completely different thing. It's a more comprehensive thing. And you got to figure out the right thing that's wrong before you can do the right thing to repair what's wrong. And so this leads to difficulty establishing a service connection and an accurate disability rating. Most people are underrated for the things that they're going through. But if they were accurately diagnosed, either in service or at least 1 year post service, if you can't catch it while they're on active duty, then we'd go a much further way in helping our veterans get what they need. So these are some of the challenges that are included with the claim. We are working very, very hard as claims experts and helping veterans on the ground submit their claims so that they can submit them accurately and appropriately and tell their stories the right way to get someone to listen to them and say, oh, this is something different that you have experienced. Let me accurately diagnose it so that you can get not only the compensation you need, but to get the help that you need for future care for the rest of your life. And so here we go with an effective VA claim strategy for neurocognitive disorder, TBI. We're going to talk about the first part. First thing to do is to obtain a comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation by a qualified provider familiar with VA rating standards. Request documentation under both 38 CFR 4.124 alpha residuals of TBI. We talked about that earlier. Remember? We talked about that earlier. Residuals of TBI. But we're going to go into more residuals of TBI whenever we go over the TBI specific deep dive, okay? And 4.130 mental disorders to capture full impairment. In that residuals piece, it's going to talk about levels of severity in the impairment process. And again, maybe either as a tagline to this, I'll do a residuals video as a tagline to this, or I will also do, or I will cover it in the deep dive that we do under TBI. And should the examiner uses DSM-5 TR terminology, major or mild neurocognitive disorder due to TBI, collect in-service event evidence, which is evidence of a head injury, blast exposure, fall, or combat incident, and then to submit VA Form 21-438, which is a statement of support claim, describing how the TBI affects daily life and work performance. Another link or extension to the strategy is to request a medical nexus letter linking TBI-related cognitive decline to the in-service event. This is going to be difficult if you aren't already being seen for TBI-related symptoms and concerns. Include lay statements from family, coworkers, or commanders describing behavioral changes post-injury, particularly if it's an injury that they knew about or an injury that was reported that may just may not have gone into your medical record. You can strengthen your claim by being able to do that. Gather post-service treatment records showing ongoing cognitive or emotional symptoms. This is continuity of care, continuation of symptomology that we always talk about, building a case and continuing to put together documentation that this is actually still affecting you in your daily life. Emphasize functional impairment in occupational and social domains, aligning with the VA's 70 to 100% rating levels. That's there in 4.130 of the CFR, 38 CFR. If previously denied, submit new and relevant evidence or request a higher level review under 38 CFR 3.156 Bravo. Here are some final thoughts. Get evaluated. Please, it is imperative that you get evaluated by someone who is a professional in these areas, a neuropsychologist or a psychiatrist experienced in TBI-related cognitive disorders. Work with an accredited VSO or VA claims representatives to prepare supporting evidence. Or work with me, or work with somebody who really, really understands what the contours of these disorders and mental health conditions are. Download the free VA mental health claim, self-assessment and decision tree. That's free for you. I've given it to everybody who clicks on any one of these videos. That's yours to have so that you can track these things. Make sure you subscribe for more Therapist Explains VA Mental Health Ratings videos. And remember, the brain has shown through many studies that it can repair itself. Okay? You can rebuild, you can recover, and you can live royally and live well. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. If you want any more information about the subject of this series, be sure to check out the playlist right here. And remember, live royally and live well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.